on the 2nd of May 2023. Do we? Yes, I wondered, Emma, if there are any housekeeping regulations that should be mentioned at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just please note that the public section of the meeting will be recorded and published online for public access after the meeting. Can all attendees please mute their microphone when they're not speaking? And we have apologies today from Shona Oman-Smith. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's turn to the agenda. Are there any declarations of interest or transparency statements that anybody would wish to make? No, there are none. There is no exempt business, so there is no decision to be made at that point. The next item is the minute of our previous meeting, which is at item 3.1. Is our members content that it's an accurate record of that meeting? I think it's fine. Yep, we're okay with the minute, so the minute is approved. And then the business planner at 3.2. So there's quite a lot of information there.
I can go through the business planner if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Thank you.
The business planner for this month, you see the first 5 are on the agenda for today. The next 2, they've been delayed because I had a period of absence, so we missed the deadline for the next 2 reports. So they'll go to the June committee. And there's no whistleblower, and the one about the strategic risk register, that's delayed as well. But Martin has been through all with the risk owners to update it, so it's going to the next committee. And we're still waiting for the Navigator projects information to come back there, but I'm hopefully chasing that up for the June committee as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Could I ask about the Navigator project? That's been in the planning for since 2021, and it is, I think, a really helpful and innovative proposal, which will manage violence in quite challenging circumstances and environments. And I believe that funding and the organisation has been allocated to do that work. So I'm just wondering if, it's been delayed. Will it definitely be coming at that next meeting?
I'm hoping. I have chased it up again just last week, so I'll get an update this week and let you know. But hopefully,
right.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's not available, I think it would be useful to get some information on it next time around, since we have been waiting for it, and just something factual about that. I just think that would be useful. It's an important one.
Okay.
And thank you. And does anyone else have any questions on the business planner? No. Okay, that's fine. Next is the directions tracker. Paul, would you like to say anything about it? To introduce this?
No, I think it's Alison that's leading this one.
Is it Alison? Sorry,
Yes,
apologies, Alison. Yes.
Sure. No problem. That's fine. Thank you. So this report presents the 6-monthly update on the status of directions made to both NHS Grampian and Aberdeen City Council. The appendix to the report lists the current directions, that is all that have not yet been closed. And these were directions made up to and including the IJB meeting on the 28th of March. The papers for this committee came out on the same day as the IJB meeting last week, so any directions made there have not been included. We have used the RAG indicators, red, amber, green indicators, agreed at committee last year, where grey represents complete. But for consistency, I wonder if going forward, we could perhaps adopt the BRAG system, so that's blue, red, amber, green, currently used for the delivery plan reporting, where blue equals complete. So if it's okay with the committee, we'll adopt that for the next time round. There are 40 open directions. 90% of those have a status of either green or amber. Paragraphs 3.7 to 3.9 within the report provide the details of the directions with a red status and the plans to ensure that these directions can be closed over the coming months. And finally, following an internal audit on data sharing, we are proposing to incorporate a register of data protection impact assessments in this spreadsheet going forward, just to provide assurance that these are being completed and updated where appropriate. So we'd propose that we would we'll change our guidance and procedures with immediate effect if the committee approve that, and that you would first see those data protection impact assessments being reported in the next 6-monthly update at the November committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that information. That's all very helpful, all good to see. Do we have any questions on this item? Yes, Luann, and then June. Luann.
Hi, morning everyone. A couple of questions just on the information governance. So I understand what Alison's saying. I wondered if we needed to include something on information governance in all our covering reports that go to the IJB, and whether that's been discussed by the leadership team. And I say that because the importance of thinking about information governance at the earliest possible stage is really key, and it is a significant area of work, obviously, for any new development. So I just wondered if that had been considered by the team, that we add that to all our reports that come to IJB for consideration. And then my second question was on the areas of red. I just wanted to get a sense of, are the delays due to finance mainly? Is that the delays around the mental health services? And are we likely to have a resolution to that quite soon?
Okay, thank you. So information governance, I think, was the first. Would that be yourself, Martin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so part of the revised IJB and committee templates, report templates, includes a section on information governance. So we're hoping to roll that out after the summer recess. So that should be included moving forward.
Okay, you happy with that, Luann? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was hoping. Thank you.
And the other question was on relation to the PCIP. Was that right? Some of the PCIP items.
Yeah, I can take that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the directions made initially were in relation to expenditure on some individual projects within the primary care improvement plan. And ordinarily at the end of the time period where we had commissioned and made arrangements for that kind of work, we would have been planning and proposing new arrangements to replace those. But unfortunately, there was a little bit of uncertainty in terms of how much funding we would get for those going forward. So that's why we haven't been able to close those particular directions off. But there's a little bit more certainty now, so the team are kind of working on the plans for what we would do going forward.
Okay. Thank you for that. June?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Chair. Alison, picking up on the mental health element again. So the reports on it's saying here, particularly I'm interested in the primary care psychologist, so it's transformation decisions required. Just trying to understand a bit more around that. given obviously the mental health money came in recently, and just what's the delay and what's the challenge around that would be really helpful. Thank you.
So again, it's just a timing issue. I mean, ideally, we would have had the decisions around about the money in time to be able to close off the direction at its end point. But we didn't have that, so that's why it's showing red, because the original date was there and we didn't have those decisions and that certainty around about the funding at that point. But the team are currently, and I don't know if Susie wants to come in to make any comment around about the primary care stuff, but the team are working now that we have a little bit more certainty around about that, we'll be able to bring the plans forward and close that direction off. As soon as we can't close the direction off until another decision comes forward and a new direction issued. So it is really just a timing issue with those ones.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. That's actually really helpful information, because the PCIP is geared towards tackling health inequalities, and there's a lot of there is quite considerable resource in there to provide the kind of opportunities and treatments that we're looking for. So it's good to know that it's moving forward and that the issues about the delay are manageable. I think that's gives some reassurance there. Any other questions on that directions tracker, or can we note that? Okay, happy to note that. Thank you very much. The unaudited accounts are there for us to consider and comment. And I think this is you, Paul,
Yes, yeah,
on this one. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, this report's asking for any comments on the unaudited accounts. And at this point, I would like to express a sincere thanks to Martin Allen and Alison McLeod there for their help in preparing the narrative to the accounts. And to the finance staff, namely Gillian Parkin and Scott Thompson, and with a special thanks to James Bolton for not only preparing and supplying the figures, but he also completed the report and the accounts during my absence. Now, once the committee is happy with these accounts, they will then be forwarded to our external auditor, along with the working papers for them to complete their audit. And if the committee has any questions, I'll do my best to try and answer them.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a very full, detailed, comprehensive set of information on the accounts. Does anyone have any questions on this paper? Luann.
Thanks, and thanks, Paul. And it's really great to hear all people getting named that have been involved in the work around this. So that's really good to hear. And just a few things. One is a very specific thing on page 47 of the packet describes IJB development, and I think I could maybe come offline with you and maybe update the wording around that, because it's describing external support, and that's not what we've done more recently. So I think we could probably just refresh that bit about what we've done around our IJB development, but happy to work with you on that offline. I suppose overall, just looking at the financial picture, clearly we're going into very challenging times. Our reserves are going to be utilised this year in a way that they've never needed to be used before. Just wanted a bit of clarity on the process for allocating and deciding how we spend our precious reserves to move us in the direction we want to go. So how's that being done, and how will IJB have sight of that? And then the second question, and I realise, Paul, I'm asking an accountant a question that you might not be able to answer, but it just struck me it's really good to see the tiered approach that's coming in around how we identify prevention, early intervention and response. Are we clear on the definitions we're using for those titles? Because, you know, under prevention, there's a whole load of different things that can mean. So just wanted a sense of, is there shared clarity on that? So that's my comments. Thank you.
Yeah, for the development one, yes, fine. Like I said, these are the draft accounts, so we can make changes, and probably there will be several changes before the final accounts come back to the IJB in, I think it's October. The reserve for the use of reserves are certain reserves that are earmarked specifically for the purpose, like the PSIP and Action 15. But the integration and change reserve can be used for any of our projects. But if there's any major spend to come out of that, a report would go back to the IJB to get the members to sign off to say that you know, it's a proper use of the reserve. So you know, anything comes back to the IJB for that.
Paul, I
And
suppose it's
sorry,
just, sorry, just coming back on that, it's just that how are things identified? You know, is it the senior leadership team or our frontline staff encouraged to bring decisions? It's just to get a sense of the process around that.
Yeah, it's to be used for one-off spend, and it's like because it's a finite resource, it can't be used in anything that's recurring. So what happens is if there's anything comes through, any projects or stuff like that, we'll have a look at it and say it ticks all the boxes for being a one-off. There's an exit strategy in it, so it could be used from the reserve. It then goes forward to the SLT saying, is this a proper use of the reserve? It then escalates up and up to before it comes on to a report to the IJB. So it usually happens with the team member coming to me saying, you know, have we any money, any spare money? That's what everybody seems to be asking, any spare money. So the default answer is no. But if it is a project that could tick the boxes for the reserves, I then kind of suggest to the IJB, the SLT, that we could use this reserve, and then it goes from there.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. And I interrupted you. You were going to say about the prevention definitions.
Sorry, is there anybody else from the team that could answer that? And I didn't know that one. Sorry. If not, I'll have to find out, Luan, and get back to you if
No one available to help with that. Okay. Okay, Alison.
Sorry, I was having real difficulty with my buttons there, trying to raise my hands and unmute myself. So in terms of the prevention agenda, obviously, you know, we're looking at that in terms of our delivery plan projects and introducing that tiered approach there. And we're also looking to include the budgets and the finance into that delivery plan report as well. So we'll have the two things together on the delivery plan reporting. So not necessarily in the so perhaps for next year's accounts, we'd be able to make some statement in terms of what percentage of our budget is spent on the prevention, early intervention agenda.
Thanks, and it's really great to see that highlighted. I suppose my point is more just about there's lots of different definitions of prevention, primary, secondary, tertiary, and it's just, do we have a shared understanding? Maybe that's something that needs developed, but I think we need to be clear about what we mean when we're talking about prevention, and using the same term and definition as our partner organisations as well will be important. So that was what I was getting at.
Yeah, sorry, Luan, if I misunderstood. That's exactly the discussion we had at the senior leadership team meeting last week when we first looked at our delivery plan with that tiered reporting included. And Phil Mackey, our public health consultant, is going to come back to a future SLT meeting later this month with some proposals around what our understanding of those definitions of prevention, of early intervention, of response, what those are, so that we're absolutely clear and we're all talking about the same thing.
Good. Thank you for that. I'm glad you raised that, Luan. It's an area where it's good to have that discussion and that reassurance about this way forward, where we're collaborating on the preventative agenda, and that's really helpful to know, because I believe that there's work underway on the NHS board on population analysis. So I think that the working together towards early intervention and prevention will surely be based on the evidence. So, you know, producing that evaluation and understanding the trends, the health and the social care trends will really, well, I would have thought will tie in with what we're trying to do in looking forward with when we look at the delivery plan and how it's operating and how we can shape it more and use our resources through the delivery plan in as effective a way as possible, so that we do have that longer term strategic view on early intervention and prevention. So I'm glad you raised that. Luann, want to come back?
Sorry again, Martin. Yes, but
Yeah.
you've just made me think of something else, and I suppose it is that collaboration and working across the whole system. NHS Grampian now have a population health committee, and I just wondered how much we're sharing what we're doing in the city. You know, do we need to be, you know, is that being shared, I suppose, or is there stuff that we can do to make sure that there's sharing of what we're doing in the city and how that might link in with what NHS Grampian might want to do, because we're all pushing in the same direction.
Absolutely. This is something discussed. Information governments and the practicalities of information sharing are mentioned at community planning, Aberdeen at the board, and I think we always have to keep finding ways of actioning that, of working together. Alison, thanks. You want to come in there? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to say, Luann, that in terms of NHS Grampian in particular, out with the community planning arrangements, where I know they're around the table as well, but myself and my counterparts in NHS Grampian and in the other two health and social care partnerships, and indeed Scottish Ambulance Service, come together regularly. We have a monthly meeting. We call it the Grampian Planners meeting. So that's a kind of forum where we share what everyone is doing and pick up ideas and best practice, and try and align as far as possible what we're doing. So it's certainly being discussed in these kind of forums, but certainly at the community planning forum, it's being discussed there as well, not only with NHS Grampian but across all of our partners.
Good, thank you. I mean, we're scrutinising the unaudited accounts, but I think that this is a really important part this is a really important discussion of looking back at how we've been managing the funds, and also how we're going to manage them, and the restricting the reduction in our resources in the future. So I think this is a very good discussion, a very apt debate for us to have, and obviously if we can encourage more of that joint working through the community planning board, well, that's really important. We're going to have to work together much more closely. So I think this is a very opportune discussion. When we're looking at the accounts, we will surely be looking at ways of providing more effective and more efficient ways of delivering care and health treatments in the future, by being proactive and thinking of how we can share our resources, information, and so forth. So no other hands up. So are we happy to approve those unaudited accounts? We're okay with that? Great. With thanks to Paul and his team. Many thanks for that. 5.2 is external audit strategy. Is that Anne MacDonald? Yeah, Anne.
It is. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Anne. Thanks. Good to see you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. So by way of introduction, I'm Anne MacDonald from Audit Scotland, and my team and I will be your external auditors for the next 5 years. We report to Michael Ollivant. He's an audit director with Audit Scotland, and he's the official appointed auditor, so he's the lucky guy who'll sign your accounts in due course. We're also at the moment the auditors for the council, and in the last audit appointment, I am a team where the auditors of NHS Grampian, so we do have a good understanding of your partner bodies. So our work is undertaken in accordance with Audit Scotland's Code of Audit Practice, and this code applies to all auditors undertaking public sector external audit in Scotland. And we're also very much driven by international auditing standards, and these have become much more onerous in recent years. Turning to the annual audit plan on the agenda for today, so this is our plan for the financial year 22-23, and it reflects the risks we've identified in respect to the annual accounts and our wider scope responsibilities under our Code of Practice. So just running through the key points, in Exhibit 1, we set out the materiality level for the audit, and for 22-23, we set this at just under £8 million, and that represents 2% of your expenditure. In practice, any misstatements will be discussed with Paul as the audit progresses, and in general, most significant misstatements are adjusted before the accounts come back to you. But in any event, anything that's adjusted or not adjusted, that's over 250,000, we would report to you as a matter of course. During the audit, we undertake audit sampling and other verification procedures to gather the assurances we need on the material balances within your accounts. And auditing standards require us to identify the risks of material misstatement to the accounts and to focus particular attention on those areas. So with that in mind, at Exhibit 2, we set out 2 significant risks of material misstatement. The first of those relates to the risk of fraud caused by management override of controls. So this is really considering the potential incentive for management to manipulate the financial reporting. And I would just want to highlight that this is prescribed by auditing standards, and therefore it routinely appears in all audit plans for all audit bodies. The second risk we've identified is more specific to yourselves, and this relates to the replacement of the Care First system. And this, you'll probably know, is the social care case management system. It was replaced by last October, so midway through the financial year. And because it's a material system within the accounts, we will be seeking assurances over its implementation and that there was appropriate transfer of data between the old system and the new system. We're also very keen that within the narrative to the accounts that you'll have an appropriate story for the IJB reserves. So you may remember that many IJBs increased reserves in the last year or so due to unspent funds from COVID. Other reasons, but there was a significant element was unspent money arising from COVID, and that during the last year, the Scottish Government reclawed an element of this. So from a transparency point of view and a public interest perspective, we're very much looking for the accounts really to set out the story behind the significant movement in reserves. Pages 81 to 82 of your paper set out what we call our wider scope risks. So this is looking more widely at the financial sustainability of IJBs and also progress round about workforce planning. And across all our audits this year, we have a particular interest in just how cybersecurity is being managed. Exhibit 5 on page 84 of your paper sets out the proposed timetable for this year's audit. So you're receiving the unaudited accounts today, and we're hoping to report back to you on the audited accounts in September. And finally, just to highlight for you, page 84 of your papers, we also set out the audit fee, which this year is just under 31,500. And a reminder that this fee arrangements are set by Audit Scotland at a national level across all sectors. Thank you, Chair. Happy to take any comments or questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. It's good to see that the audit process is in good hands, and we look forward to working with you into and to this process. Does anyone have any questions for for Anne. John.
Yeah, it's just a brief comment, really. It's the comment on page 75 around adding value, and I think that's really useful in terms of we don't want the auditors just to sign off the accounts as being a true and fair record, but we're looking also for you to make suggestions, as it were. None of us has a monopoly of wisdom, so you guys will be looking at other IJBs, and if you see some good practice elsewhere that we could learn from, I think that's great. So that was just that brief comment, really.
Okay. Thanks for that. Yeah. Yeah. One point I just wanted to ask about the workforce planning element. That I'm not sure. I don't think that goes into detail, or is that correct?
So looking across workforce planning, we very much are looking at, well, first of all, we're starting off, as I said, with financial sustainability, and just as you know, looking at the pressures that all of the public sector is after, but also within that, very much recognise that that workforce is a pressure in terms of just having the right people in the right place. So we're interested just in how, really, with looking at the finances, is how resources are being used to their most efficiently. So looking at really at how you're progressing workforce planning in terms of succession planning. You know, we know that the workforce is getting older, so what new initiatives are coming in, and also just with just trying to change what's being offered in terms of healthcare, you know, more self-help, etc., just how therefore the demands on the workforce is moving. So it's really just an overview really to learn from you. That then feeds into what Audit Scotland does nationally. You'll be aware that we do annual overview reporting, which is bringing together the findings across across Scotland. So we'd be looking to feed what you're doing in terms of workforce into that process, and just trying to offer statements of fact, but also, as you say, good practices and where you can learn from others.
Okay, thank you for that. It's very reassuring that it's a thorough, robust process of inquiry, and hopefully your findings will all be positive, and give us reassurance. Thank you very much. Any other questions on that item? Okay, thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the report and for the information. 6.1 is the strategic plan, the Q4 update, and who would wish to lead us on this? Who would like to introduce this?
I'll take that forward if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody. So in front of you, we have the Q4 updates related to the delivery plan. And as with previous quarters, these updates intend to provide assurance to committee of the work that's ongoing. This will be the last updates that's given with regards to year one of the delivery plan. So next quarter, we'll be looking at year two. So as committee will remember, our process is to provide monthly updates to the senior leadership team on progress being made against our delivery plan, and to raise a flash report where a project has a red RAG status or significant issues exist within the project. And in Q4, only 2 projects were raised. Firstly, the snappily titled KPS 12, which is related to hospital at home. And where they had a planned trajectory to introduce 45 beds within the service, but it wasn't possible due to delays in recruiting a consultant within the role. So there's a revised trajectory of 40, that was approved by SLT, and that was thereafter met. It's probably important to note that it shouldn't have any impact on the overall planned 100 beds within hospital at home. So although the trajectory might have changed, the overall intention hasn't. So the second paper received by SLT related to CT01, which is the redesigning of adult social work to enhance the care manager's role. And the request was made to extend the timeline to December 2024, since it had been scoped and the timeline was required to be extended. And that was approved by SLT and is reflected in year 2 of the delivery plan. The quarterly updates have been made to all the other entries within the delivery plan, and obviously that's extensively shown within the report in Appendix A. Appendix B shows our high-level key metrics for the delivery plan and what we intend to have a positive impact upon. This should be familiar to you. It's been presented every quarter up until now. And as you can see, our sort of delayed discharge and unmet needs are reduced in line with what was reported and positively commented on by Scottish Government as the lowest since January 2022. And that helps to show the impact that the delivery plan is having alongside the hard work from the operational teams. So as I've already mentioned, the delivery plan has been updated to reflect year 2 of our strategic plan, and that was approved by IJB at the end of March. Our delivery plan dashboard will be refreshed in line with this. And I suppose I wanted to make note that at the last RAPC, there'd been queries about whether we could display comparative data from Aberdeenshire and Moray to give a little bit of context around some of the figures. So it's not, as you'll see, it's not included in this dashboard, but we've taken it on board for our year 2 delivery plan dashboard. And there was also a comment around about our falls data and whether we could include falls from harm. And that's also been taken into account for our year 2 delivery plan dashboard. So the final attachment to our report is a review of the strategic plan's reporting framework. So it was previously taken to RAPC alongside the strategic plan. So this has really just been given a refresh in line with year 2 as well. There's been very minimal changes to it. For example, the sort of inclusion of a roles and responsibilities section. So that's a brief overview of all that's included there, but obviously happy to have any questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. John.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Michelle, for that. So I was going to ask about, but I think you've answered it. Page 110 of the pack, there's a comment that we're talking about delayed discharge, and it's saying these are Aberdeen City delays only, so that's the bit that will be addressed in due course when we get comparative data.
Yeah, I think the comparative data, so the delayed discharges that are showed there are patients who reside in Aberdeen City. But of course, some of our services take into account Aberdeenshire patients as well.
Yeah.
So that's how those patients are identified, is through their postcodes. But the reflective data was more around the comparison to, I suppose, how well we're performing. Sometimes it's easier to see somebody else's results to make that comparison.
Thanks for that. And then I had a couple of questions and comments around the stats on page 105 of the pack. So first one is a comment around the delayed discharge stats. December 22, 42 episodes equals 563 days. Feb 23, 42 episodes equals 471 days. So I think just a salutary reminder that the number of days isn't the only figure we need to look at. I guess you can get 1 or 2 complex cases making a huge difference to the number of bed days there. So that was the comment. And then the other question I had was around the sorry, I just need to find my annotations. Yeah, the data on care home occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at that data, I'm thinking, what should I think about that? So if you had if occupancy was, say, 60%, you'd say actually that's probably quite a bad use of resources because we're not using the resources properly. If it was 99%, I'd be thinking that's a problem because even a slight increase in need or demand is going to make a mess of the system. 90%, 92%, should I be worried about that over the next 6 months, year?
I'm not entirely sure I'm the right person to give an answer to that. Is there anybody else that has any comment?
Who can help? Alison, you put your hand up.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not entirely sure I can help it exactly. But what I will say is that in Aberdeen City, our care home occupancy rate has been fairly steady around about that sort of 90 plus, 91, 92% for a good number of years. It's important to remember, obviously, it's not the same people who are making up that 90 odd percent occupancy. There is a fairly constant turnover, but you're absolutely right. There is that kind of sweet spot there around about still having enough capacity to be able to take in anybody who needs a care home placement, and underutilising the resources. So sorry, not a terribly definitive answer, but all I would say is, we're as an SLT, I would suggest we're comfortable with that 91, 92%, because that's a picture that we've seen on a regular basis for a number of years.
Thanks, Alison. That's reassuring, certainly in terms of the short term. In the earlier paper, we had projections about the number of elderly folk, whether they're 65, 75 or over 75s, increasing quite dramatically over the next 10, 15 years. So while I'm reassured by what you're saying on the kind of short term issue about the number of care home beds, I'm wondering long term whether this is something we should be looking at. If we're going to need a lot more beds for these folk in 5-10 years time, is that something? I think Martin's on the call, Martin Allen's on the call, so can we build that into the risk register somewhere? I'm reassured for now, but I've got this worry about the long term.
We're certainly very aware of our demand in terms of demographics, but also in terms of morbidity and comorbidity, and how that is being looked at. And if you recall, that one of the projects in our delivery plan, our year one delivery plan, was around about looking at our bed base. Now, we didn't look at care home bed base, but it is something that we are that's on our planning horizon in terms of what is our demand coming down the line, and what do we need to respond to that demand. But what I would say as well is bear in mind that shifting the balance of care in that care homes is actually not the preferred destination. It will obviously be the right destination for a proportion of that demand, but with the increase in our care at home provision, and even the hospital at home service, which enables more people to be looked after in their own home, just because our elderly population is increasing does not necessarily mean that the care home bed requirement will increase as well.
Thanks for that. And I had just one more question, which if I can find it. Oh yeah, it was about it's actually the next page. It's page 106. The data on falls, and it just struck me that there was quite a big variance. 2021, you've got 300 people falling, and then Q4 21, it's gone up to 600. So I just kind of wondered if there was any explanation for that kind of wide variance. I mean, I'm guessing that in the winter months you're probably going to get more falls because it'll be icy, but it just seemed a huge difference in the number of falls. Just wonder if get some commentary on that.
The only comment I can really give is from our clinical care governance group, because they regularly report on falls, and it's taken within that forum, and where there is an increase in a specific area, which is noted, there tends to be a review that takes place as to why they have happened and the individual parameters around them. But I think it was perhaps June that had commented at the last meeting around about the sort of falls from harm rather than all-inclusive falls, if you like. So it may be the case that our data parameters around that is given a sort of false sense of increase, if you like. So we may be able to tweak that slightly in our next delivery plan dashboard.
Yeah, thanks for that. As I say, it was more just curiosity as much as anything, just because of the wide discrepancy. I think so yeah, I think that's all my questions on this one.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for that. June.
Thank you. And John, just to come back on falls, I mean, I think when we look at falls with harm, and there is a median around that we can, I'm sure we can present the data in that way, so you'll be able to seek better assurance in relation to it. Because the data here is quite raw, really. It probably needs quite a bit of work just to get underneath it. Thanks. So my question, Michelle, was in relation to the programmes of work that have not been started. So I note they're clear, there's no colour, no RAG status against it, and I was just trying to understand that, why they wouldn't be read because they haven't been started as part of your delivery plan.
So some of those are dependent on other projects already taking place. So the likes of I'm going to say the Neuro review. There's a couple of other projects that are reliant upon that review taking place and then implementing the outcomes of those reviews. So it's not necessarily that it's not started, it's that the precursor to it hasn't given the outcomes in order for it to start. And I think that's probably been better reflected in our year 2 delivery plan as well. A sort of a bit of learning as to how it was presented, so that it's more reflective of the work that's taken place and the timeline associated with it. Alison, I don't know if you want to comment any further about that.
No, I was just nodding my head there because that's exactly what I would say. I've now banned the not started label. Yeah, I think some of our project managers are very literal around about the description there, but there is work ongoing. So yeah, we've had that discussion, and as Michelle says, we will certainly address it for reporting on our year 2.
Thank you, both. My next question is in relation to the data as well, and I think it's page, I'll just double check the page. Can't find the page anyway. It's in relation to the mental health Cornhill occupancy data. Now, I sit around all this system, and it just doesn't feel accurate to me in relation to occupancy, where I know day on day there's been no beds in that waiting list. So I was just curious around that. It just doesn't feel right, but maybe it is right, and the story that I hear is maybe slightly different, but I was just curious around it. And obviously there has been surge beds put up for a period of time, although they're back down, and just wanted to check that that's reflected in this data as well. Thank you.
I mean, all I can say is it's taken direct from TrackCare. It's Health Intelligence that collates this information for us and displays it. So all I can really do is go back and look at their parameters and check how that information is being gathered. But yeah, the data is coming direct from TrackCare, so I would certainly hope it was correct, but it's something that we can look at.
Could I just come in there as well? I would certainly say absolutely, June, totally agree with you, being around about the Daily System Connect meeting and listening to the updates from mental health and learning disabilities colleagues. Yes, it's very often the case that there are no beds. And I think it's maybe how those beds are recorded in the system. So the system maybe has all of the beds that are actually physically located in the wards. Whereas perhaps not all of them are actually open due to staffing or other reasons. So it's maybe just the way it's been recorded. But yeah, as Michelle says, I'm sure Michelle and Alex Bertram will have a good chat about that, and we'll see if we can bring a little bit more clarity to that in future.
Okay. Thank you for that. Next is Luann.
Thanks, Martin. So firstly, lots of green on the plan, which is great to see considering the pressure. So you know, good to acknowledge that. That's fantastic. Obviously, I go to the ambers and wondering what's happened and what we can learn from that. We've already spoken this morning about the mental health services, but to me, what's described there is quite concerning. You know, the financial issues, but the background being that we know there's increased demand for that. And then I was also tying that with the bed occupancy and I know this is very simplistic, but if that is accurate, then it looks like there's spare capacity in some bits of the hospital and then completely not in others. And so just how that's all being looked at. So I suppose I just want to get some assurance that there is a plan for looking at the whole of our mental health transformation plan, and that we're not sort of just waiting for other, finance to be absolutely clear, because our public and our communities can't wait for that. We need to be doing stuff now. So that's my first question, concern. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on that.
I'm happy to come in on that. Sorry, just looking at Michelle's face there. Yeah, the Mental Health and Learning Disabilities Transformation Programme is a Grampian-wide programme, and there's a dedicated team around about that. There's also it also has its own specific programme board where it reports to. So there's a lot more detailed reporting goes to that programme board than we reflect in our delivery plan, and perhaps it's that detail, Luann, that might give you a bit more assurance. Just to note that, obviously the team have been very concerned and watching very closely the financial arrangements, because there was a lot of plans for work to be done, and a lot of it was dependent on the funding. So as soon as the funding envelope became clear, some of these plans were revised, etc., etc. But as I say, they're very much focused on the demand that they are aware of, and the work that needs to be done, and we're constantly reviewing what can be done within the resources that we have, and trying to make sure that what resources we do have are targeted to where it's needed most.
Thanks, Alison. Well, I mean, maybe for consideration would be our next RAPC. We'll have a bit of a closer look at that, and I'm really conscious that I'm not wanting to be creating loads of work for people, but even just a presentation on where the portfolio board is at the moment, what the work's happening, would just give me some assurance that that work is progressing. But I'll leave it with you to think of how that can be done in a way that's not too onerous, because obviously we want the people to be focusing on doing the work, not creating lots of reporting to hear. But I feel like I would just like to be more cited on that.
There was a suggestion at the last committee that we would present a programme level update alongside our delivery plan update. So that could be one for the first of those programme updates. It's just to mention, I think it's coming to IJB as well. I think it, as an update, because of course our updates that we're presenting today were live as of the end of March, and I think there's been approval from the financial perspective since this update took place, and I think they're going into a full business case and then coming to IJB August, September time maybe. So there may be a paper on its way.
Okay, good. That's good to hear, and I think just to get us having some visibility around it is important. And the second area, and again, the amber bit, is around frailty and hospital at home. And I suppose my hospital at home question is, is 100 beds realistic? It says that we're not changing the trajectory for that, but if recruitment, I mean, what will be different? Because I suppose we're still fishing in the same pool for consultants and the medical staff. So what's that realism based on? Was my first question on that.
So I would say that's an ambition, and we're all very aware of the challenges we were when the ambition was first set. but Sandra's view on that is, you know, let's keep the ambition and find ways of achieving that. That's her sort of a challenge to us. But you're absolutely right. The recruitment challenges are there. But we have discussed this at length, and Sandra wants us to keep that ambitious target. In fact, I think she'd quite like to increase it, and keep the team on their toes in terms of thinking about ways of how we can achieve that, given the challenges that we have with recruitment. So you're right to raise that, Luann. We're very aware of it, but we want to see if we can find ways to achieve that nonetheless.
Okay, yeah, I understand that. And then more widely on the frailty pathway, it does feel like that's a huge area and very pressurised, as it says in the report. And again, maybe an area that we could have a bit more visibility around. If I'm reading the summary correctly, you know, it's been slower than planned to do the work around that. So that's another ask, and I'm not sure if here's the right place and the timing of that, but given the risks around that for our older population, it feels like some visibility on that would be really useful and important for us. Alison, I don't know what you think. Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly do a bit of a deeper dive on the what's happening around about there. What I would say, just in the last few months, again, just drawing on that experience of being senior manager on call and sitting around some of these system-wide meetings, is that the frailty pathway performance has improved month on month in the last few weeks, and I think our challenges are the elements of the wider system that would enable that pathway to perhaps perform even better. And again, just to give you that assurance, there's a team of folk dedicated to looking at that frailty pathway, understanding what the challenges are, and putting in place whatever they can to try and move that forward. And we would love to see that turn from amber to green, but similarly to hospital at home, there are challenges there that are going to be difficult to overcome in the short term anyway. But happy to again have that as the frailty is a programme on its own. So again, that could certainly be one of the programme updates that we bring forward to a future meeting.
Thanks, Alison. And as you're saying that, I think there will be a presentation on the frailty pathway to the next North East Partnership Steering Group. So it might be that there could be an easy sort of replication of that within the IJB. So okay. And my final point is more an observation, and it's on the locality empowerment groups. I've been speaking with a lot of different people in communities about, challenges around volunteering, and where I think volunteering and getting people involved really works is when there's tangible benefits to people. So they get access to really good training, or they get a student card, or something that actually helps them make progress in their own life. And I suppose I'm thinking of, are we connected this up enough with our services? And I'm thinking particularly around mental health, drug and alcohol services, where some people that might be in recovery, but they're so far away from being able to get a job. Could we provide them with almost like a stepping stone to maybe employment by developing what we do in our locality empowerment group? So it's just something about not seeing that as a separate thing that happens over in communities, but actually these people are in our services and they've got great things to give back to us, but we need to up our offer to them, I think. And I'm also wondering about connecting with the EHRC, the research programme, and there's work to create citizen researchers, and I'm just wondering, how is that joined up, or does it feel at the moment quite separate areas of work?
So in terms of the linking into services and service users, that is certainly on our plans. So we're reviewing our locality empowerment group arrangements at the minute, and the first meeting took place last week, and there are others scheduled over the coming weeks. But we're really just at that kind of resetting phase. There are plans to make closer links into services, but that will be in our second phase once we've kind of re-established and got things together. So absolutely, that is on our plans to make those links there. Not aware of the research project, so any information you have on that would be gratefully received, and we can feed that into our review programme as well.
I'll do that, Alison. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I've just got two questions on the work plan. The first one is about KPS 22 on the family support model, which is page 101. That's classed as amber, and I just wondered if that's just a timing issue, because clearly that's an important opportunity of integrating further with children's services. But so is that just about timing, that it's that there's a kind of a concern there?
It's a bit about timing, but it's also about governance. And actually, as part of our year 2 review, we agreed because the family plan and the arrangements or with children's services, there's a whole governance process around about that goes through the Children's Services Board. So we have a link into that, but we are not in complete control of the timing and what we do there. So in year 2, we have removed that particular project and said, yeah, we will link into that, but we will leave the governance and delivery of it to the Children's Services Board. So Fiona Mitchell-Hill, our chief nurse, will absolutely remain as on that programme and leading one of the work streams, I think, or at least one of the work streams, but the reporting of it will go up through the Children's Services Board.
Okay, fair enough. That locates it within a very appropriate structure. So that's fine. That is reassuring. Thanks for that. And the other one was on CT05 on page 98. Justice work, social work. A couple of challenges are highlighted there on page 98. I think it's three main challenges about unpaid work team, also on linking up with D365, and what was the other one? The other one is the assessment tool. Are these just kind of introductory? You know, are these just reflecting the perhaps some challenges in introducing these changes rather than something fundamental that would be of greater concern?
Absolutely. What that project is reflecting is the outcome of the inspection, which was a very positive inspection in justice social work. So these were areas, recommendations on the action plan. And again, just for assurance, you know, that action plan is reviewed on a regular basis. There's a dedicated team around and about it, and absolutely likes of linking into D365. You know, D365 has just recently been introduced. There's some teething problems, as there always is with new computer systems, just that we need to find workarounds for, etc. So particularly in relation to D365, that definitely is a bit of timing. You know, it's just been introduced. We need to work around that. I'm not entirely sure of the detail of some of the other challenges that are mentioned there, but as I say, that action plan is reviewed because obviously we have to report back to the Care Inspectorate in terms of the actions that we've taken. So again, a whole fairly robust process around about understanding what these challenges are and what we're doing about them, being reported back in preparation for the next inspection in that area.
Okay, fair enough. I'm grateful for that. They are these will be challenges of a relatively minor scale, so that's helpful to have those answers. Thank you very much. I think are we all done with the strategic plan quarterly update? Yeah. Okay, thank you everyone for the questions and for providing those really helpful answers and the information. Next, 6.2 is the primary care improvement plan update with Alison Penman's name against it.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair.
Hello.
I'm going to talk to the Primary Care Improvement Plan, PCIP as it's known to those who know it. And this is an update report. It's not a plan as such. So the plan was developed to support the new GP contract in 2018. And within the plan, there are 6 work streams: pharmacotherapy, CTAC, which is community treatment and care, VTP, which is the vaccination transformation programme, first contact physiotherapy for musculoskeletal patients, urgent care or city visits as we know it, and the link practitioner service. So that's all contained within the report. It gives an update on current state, where we are at the moment, and any progress around the work streams within. In terms of planning, we have commenced a planning process to refresh our plan, and just recently completed a review of the urgent care city visit service, which is attached as an appendix. We are going to now commence a review of the CTAC service, which is a bigger, probably meatier service, more personnel, etc., more service provision around that. So we're about to start that with our project team already in place. We are currently waiting for the financial envelope for this current financial year to be confirmed by the government, but they've had challenges, as we would appreciate. And we have been a little delayed. The second tranche of the funding for last financial year, 22-23, was confirmed in March. It had expected that to be confirmed in December, so it has delayed our planning process somewhat. But we'll continue whatever we want to get in there and see how our services are performing along with our primary care practices. We've got some sessions in place, and we're currently taking that forward. So I'll answer any questions if anyone would like to ask anything around the report.
Thank you very much, Alison, for that introduction. John Cook, first of all.
Thanks, Martin, and thanks, Alison. Yeah, just had a couple of questions. There is a comment on. Sorry, just need to find it. Oh yeah, pharmacotherapy. So there's a comment on page 122 around candidates not having primary care experience, and I just wondered, is that something to do with the way pharmacists are trained, or is there something else going on there?
No, some of the, they're obviously all trained up, they're trained pharmacists, but some of the pharmacists may not have worked in primary care as such. So, they may have worked in private pharmacies, they may have worked you know, in that type of scenario. Some have perhaps worked as a community pharmacist, which is again is different, and so they would need to have the appropriate training to be able to deliver the pharmacotherapy service as we have it, working with the practices.
Okay, thanks for that. It was curiosity as much as anything, to be honest. And then my other question was around physios, which is on, sorry, yeah, page 124, and we've got 19 out of 26 practices, which is 73%, have got physios with them. Do we think, would we want to get that to 100%? Would it be unrealistic to get it to 100%? Do we think 73% is good or bad, and what should we be doing really?
So within the current plan, the plan that we're working to at the moment, the aspiration would be 100%. However, due to recruitment restraints, and again, you know, they need to be recruiting to a level of experience, etc., that they can more or less hit the ground running. So it has been challenging, but it has increased from 46% sort of 6 months ago when I joined the service. So it is encouraging, and the feedback is that they're not fishing from the same pool. The recruits or the applicants that they've had of late have actually been from out with NHS Grampians, so that's always encouraging as well.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, that is encouraging.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one point. I thought that the city visits scheme that seems to be rolled out quite comprehensively, and so that's really positive, to see. Luann.
Thank you, and thanks, Alison, for the report. Just a basic question, just for my straightforward mind. So the finance for this, we know what we're getting now this year, and it's fully allocated against all these areas, or is there any chance we're going to get more money, or is this it?
No, we haven't actually had confirmation for this financial year, Luann, for 23-24. So we're just currently waiting to hear from the Scottish Government. We're actually completing a tracker. Twice a year we complete a tracker provided by the ScotGov, and we complete that and send it back to them, looking at our performance, our recruits, our workforce, etc. So they will review that for all boards, all partnerships, and then at some point, hopefully soon, they'll confirm our funding envelope. But we're just going to make an assumption at the moment. We're going to do some planning work that we could adapt into the funding.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, okay, thanks, Alison. So I had a couple of other things. One was just there's reference to a primary care evaluators network, page 121 of the pack, and I just wondered, is that happening in Aberdeen? Have we got a local network, or is that something that's national? That sounds quite an important area.
It does, doesn't it? And I can't answer that, unfortunately. I'm wondering if Susie might be able to shed light on that. The evaluators.
Hi, Leanne. Yeah, that was from the national update, actually. So that's a national group. It's not a local group that's fed into. So yeah, I think, again, it's the tracker that we have is based on all our kind of finances, activity, demand. They look at all of that, but they're wanting to get into a little bit more nitty-gritty around evaluation, and that's what that group's looking at.
Okay, so maybe over time that we'll see that come into Aberdeen to help us with the valuation.
Well, it's national, so we'd feed into it as part of the national group. So
okay.
Basically evaluating the implementation of the PSIP as a whole, as part of the delivery of the MOU for the contract.
Okay. Okay, that's quite interesting. Yeah, I was going to ask about physio, but that's been covered. The city visits and the urgent care. So Scottish Government are saying focus on urgent care, and we're describing our city visits. Are we doing other things around urgent care, or is it just the city visits? And I'm thinking of how we're connecting with the Flow Navigation Centre, Fit Like hubs, and all this, the different things that exist. So just to get a sense of what else we're doing.
We're focusing on the city visits, so that's your house visits, house calls, that saves the GP time. I'm not aware that we have anything else that connects into any other flows, Luann. For the work streams, the other work streams that we have.
Okay.
Susie, you have your hand up.
Sorry, I think there's a delay on sticky buttons and things. No, so Alison's spot on. It's a different thing. I think it's worth to mention that in primary care, as you know, 90% of all health contacts are within general practice. And Grampian as a board, so we can't claim this just for City, but as a board, have the lowest number of attendances at the emergency department. So I think, and we've got the kind of evidence that shows that we our general practice colleagues are doing a very good job in protecting acute care. So we link that way in terms of admission avoidance, in terms of looking after patients who are maybe awaiting planned care, awaiting surgeries. So they do their utmost to try and keep people well in the community. And that's how we link into it. It's a slightly different team, but similar sort of umbrella team that look after kind of hospital homes. So there is connections, like, you know, we do work in an integrated way, but it is different. But just to let you know that, I thought it'd be quite interesting fact to know.
Yeah. Thanks, Susie. And I think it's reading this report is quite focused on the PSIP plan and the monies that we get for PSIP, and where my mind always goes is into like all the other stuff. So it's good to just remind me on this focus. And I think there are well, Susie and Alison, you'll be able to say a bit more about this, but I think there are conversations about how we're doing this across Grampian more, so that we're connecting up more. And my comment on, I suppose, not just PSIP, but on the GP contract now is I do think there are unintended consequences for our communities. We've made access and care more fragmented, certainly in, you know, maybe not so much in a city, but in rural areas, traveling all different places to get vaccines that are different from your GP. So I think it would be really important that we take a real look at what we're doing and what the impact, positive and negative, is on our communities, because it feels quite, it's making some things more complex for people in terms of access. I don't know if Susie or Alison, you want to come back on that and talk about the plan for looking at all that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Susie.
Yeah, I absolutely with you, Luann, and that is definitely an ongoing worry in all our services, not just, I suppose, in primary care. Just, I suppose, in terms of PSIP specifically, the primary care improvement plan, the way we work is obviously around collaboration with the practices and understanding demand and health needs. So in terms of ensuring that we're focusing on health inequalities and that we're making sure we're meeting that need across and making it equitable, we do that. For instance, link workers has a weighted scale against deprivation. And in terms of like things like our CTAC, you know, in terms of improving accessibility, we make sure that we have hubs across the city, and that's something that's core to the sort of model that we're trying to implement. It's one of our principles. I'm trying to think of other examples off the top of my head just to give you kind of reassurance. We're also doing work, so again in the wider, so we have PSIP, obviously we're a primary care team. We've been doing some work around trauma-informed care. So we've done a session at our last citywide GP event around trauma-informed care and supplying training materials around to the practices. We're also, with our 2C practice, the homeless practice Marywell, we're also taking that forward in a planned approach for training around trauma-informed care, and also attending the national deep NGP meetings. So there is other work ongoing, not specific to PSIP, but I suppose just assure the group that we have that awareness and keen to make sure that we are fulfilling that for the city. Thank you.
Good.
Can I just come back, Martin, just
Mhm,
to say thank you, Susie. That's great. I didn't know that trauma training was happening, and one of the feedback I had from a GP, not from Aberdeen, but was saying that the way things are delivered now with the GP contract, it makes the key to providing really good trauma-informed care is that it's relationship-based. So actually it doesn't help someone who's got complex trauma to go to 6 different people. They need to have a relationship with someone and trust them, and that used to be the GP. So really good that we're doing that work, because I think there are real risks of unintended consequences that could widen inequalities. So yeah, delighted to hear that, Susie, thank you.
Great. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much for that discussion, and that's been really helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. So we can move on. That was item 6.2. Moving on the agenda, there's nothing at 7.1, and therefore we're looking at the date of the next meeting, which is the 13th of June. So look forward to seeing you all on the 13th of June. Thanks for your attendance and for your input this morning. It's all really much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.